It's Victoria Field, co-host of Metabolic Health Summit, and I'm so excited because it's been a while since we've been live on this platform, and I'm about to bring in my co-host, Dr. Dominic, Dr. Angela Poff, two big ketogenic researchers out of the University of South Florida, and I'm very excited because we're going to be answering some questions today and also talking about some of the exciting things that we have coming up for the conference. We've got early bird tickets available now through October only. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you actually get 10% off those early bird prices, but you have to head on over to our website, and I'll comment below with the newsletter. So that way you guys can head on over there, sign up for our email list, get your 10% off and snag your tickets because last year we sold out. I'm gonna add in Dom and Angela here. Let's see here. Let me add. See if it'll let these guys on camera. We've got some exciting things to cover today. Let me see if I can add you guys in this way. Let's see. Oh, you're there.
1 second, we're getting you. Sorry.
You gotta love the beauty of live video.
Well, it won't let us start unless we turn the camera, and then so I have to have it off the stand, and anyway, it's a whole thing.
You guys are amazing scientists in the keto space, but there's a science to Facebook as well. We're finding out.
There is, and we're not pros on that. No.
Well, I can see you guys. How are you?
Good.
Very good. Very good.
How are you?
Yeah.
Good. I'm excited. We're 170 days, 12 hours or so away from Metabolic Health Summit.
Don't start the countdown.
I know. Who's counting, right? I mean, nobody's counting.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, so it's exciting. The conference, for those who don't know, it's a scientific conference all on metabolic health. I mean, a good majority of what we talk about is nutrition and sort of the latest science behind it, all the way to sleep, gut microbiome, I mean, you name it. It's a really an exciting event where we bring all the top minds together in the space to present the latest research. So whether you're a medical professional, scientist, or you just want to get the very nitty-gritty details on the very cutting edge of nutrition science, it's the place to be. It's in January in LA, and we've got some speakers that have been accepting. You guys want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the new names that we've got coming up?
Sure. Sure. Let's see. So one of them is Dr. Barbara Koffler, who I've known for several years. We kept running into each other at the Keystone Tumor Metabolism meetings, which is a really, really great meeting dedicated completely to tumor metabolism, and some of the world, or really the world's leading experts in that field, are always there presenting that work. And so I got to know Barbara that way. And she does some really interesting work on ketogenic diet and a variety of models, but really her focus has primarily been neuroblastoma, which is a brain cancer, often affects pediatric population. And she's shown some really interesting and promising work in neuroblastoma models. And actually just today I found a very recent article of hers that was very interesting, looking at how the ketogenic diet changes the metabolic profile of the metabolome, or the basically the whole profile of metabolites in our blood in an animal model. So it was a breast cancer model. And in that paper, basically, she was showing that in these mice that have breast cancer that are receiving chemotherapy, adding a ketogenic diet basically kind of normalizes their metabolome in terms of their plasma metabolome. Looks a lot more like a normal healthy mouse than it does a mouse that's going through chemotherapy for cancer. So that was really interesting, and I just saw that paper come out this morning.
Wow.
So she's doing some really innovative work and answering some important questions that have yet to be answered. So she's one of our new speakers this year, and we're really excited to have her.
Yeah, she's gonna be great. Go ahead, Dom.
Oh, John Newman
Yeah.
will be. I'm excited to. We've talked and presented at similar conferences in the past, and he has really been a leader in defining the effects of ketones on various signaling pathways, and specifically in regard to aging and longevity. And I know that's a hot topic. So he will be, without going into too much detail about his work, you got to come to find out. But he has a couple excellent review articles on the effects of ketones and their effects on various signaling pathways implicated in aging and longevity, which is what he studies. He's in the geriatric department, and he's at the Buck Institute. And I think that's going to be, a new an expanding direction of ketogenic science is really looking at ketones, not necessarily as a metabolite, an energy metabolite, but also as a signal transduction molecule that works in the capacity of influencing gene expression and longevity pathways. And so I'm really excited to see what he's going to be presenting this year.
Yeah, we've got some really great new people, not new to the scene by any means, but we really try very hard to showcase. I mean, there's people all over the world that are doing some incredible research, and to be honest, it's actually quite difficult to bring everybody in because there's so many great people and sort of game changers in this space right now. But we really do our best to bring in the very sort of cutting edge science to everybody, whether, like I mentioned, whether you're a medical professional and wanting to implement something into your practice, or you simply just want to improve your own metabolic health. It's a great place and platform for that. We've also got Dr. Ted Echecoso, who we've not mentioned on our website even yet. And he has an interesting approach called HOME, Human Optimization Medicine, which really is a unique thing, I think, in the medical world. And he's sort of a pioneer in many ways. So he's going to be coming out to speak. Dr. Brianna Stubbs, Dr. Sarah Hallberg, who's got some incredible work with Virta Health, Stephen Finney, who, I mean, I think I started reading his work when I first got into this whole community. Dr. Eric Kosoff, who's going to be speaking to epilepsy. I mean, it's going to be a really exciting event, 4 days, and early bird tickets are still available, but we do sell out every year. And you can get 10% off if you sign up for our email list, which I'll post in the comments after this session. But we've got some keto questions to ask, that have been asked to answer and sort of tackle today, because our goal is to really continue to talk about the latest science beyond just 4 days granted it's an amazing 4 days, but beyond just those 4 days in our conference, to talk about it leading up to the event and beyond that is really what we're passionate about, to be able to move this forward. So one of the questions we had, which we're actually going to try to at least cover the topic of women's health because it's so important and gets asked, I think, a lot, is keto and pregnancy, which is kind of an interesting topic for many reasons. And it's not something that's really been thoroughly researched, I would say. But we actually have Dr. Jamie Seaman, who is a OBGYN, who will be coming out and hosting a special interest forum specifically on women's health, because it's something that is really fascinating, especially when you put into the mix, I think, sort of the days leading up to, or maybe conception, and then actually getting pregnant, and then sort of the incidence right now of gestational diabetes. She has a really unique perspective on this, but I'm curious what you two think, because this is something that's really asked a lot, and fats are so hormonally supportive, but the research there is what we're interested in learning more about.
Yeah. I mean, just some thoughts. It's something that has not been thoroughly studied, which is pretty common with pregnancy. Of course, kind of the whole goal is to err on the side of caution, right, from the very beginning. Exactly. So, you can't really justify, or ethics committees don't approve lots of studies that aren't really required on pregnant women, right? So it's kind of one of those things that really, as I said, there's not really any research around. And so people eat very varied diets, and historically have eaten very different diets depending on where you're at, what time of the year, what you have available to you. But it's hard to kind of even, I guess, understand what might be an ideal versus acceptable type of diet when you're pregnant, considering the lack of information. And we know that there are changes in our metabolism and nutritional requirements that occur during pregnancy. Your metabolism is much higher. You do consume and use more nutrients than when you're not pregnant. Same for breastfeeding. And I think we're still kind of in this space where we don't understand what is ideal. So, I think for me, I can just speak from experience. When I was pregnant, I did not eat a full ketogenic diet. I probably did more like a low to moderate kind of smart carb type diet. And I think that the evidence really does support really trying to eliminate those highly processed foods, really refined sugars. We know those things contribute to gestational diabetes and other, risk factors. We know that about, I think, 2/3 of women go into pregnancy either being overweight or obese. So these are questions on women's minds, and they have, poor metabolic health during pregnancy can really affect the outcome of pregnancy, the health of the baby, after the fact. So people are interested in this, but it's a little bit hard, I guess, to answer. Something also to think about is when someone says a ketogenic diet, what does that mean to them, right? It's really a wide term. You could be eating something that is pretty, very extreme in terms of like, and I'm not sure we can make a statement about what on that whole spectrum of ketogenic diets is going to, kind of have an effect. And, the more strict ketogenic diets can, if you're not formulating it properly, could cause nutritional deficiencies if you're not looking out for that or doing it properly. And that could be really dangerous, right? So there's a lot of what ifs, I think, in this conversation. And so I think for most women, just kind of focusing on the good advice of removing those highly processed, refined sugars, those kind of things, I think everyone can agree that's definitely a good choice.
Right.
And it's really context dependent.
Yeah.
Too. So if you're already following a ketogenic diet or a modified ketogenic diet, even low carb, and you become pregnant or you are intending to become pregnant, then I don't see any necessary reason to change that. But it's not medical advice. But actually, it's kind of coincidence because over 2 or 3 people over the last few weeks contacted me, and 2 of them, I believe, had rare metabolic diseases where they needed to be on the ketogenic diet, and they were intending to become pregnant. So it's almost a case study in people, and one's a rare genetic disease that actually requires being in a state of ketosis because of the rare genetic disorder. So they are just ensuring that their nutritional status, you can get blood work to indicate levels of folate and B vitamins and electrolytes and things like that are within a certain range, vitamin D3 levels, and all these things are in the right range. So ensure that the nutritional statuses and that your hormones are in the right range. But if you're already doing it to optimize your health or improve your health, I don't see any necessary reason to radically change something. You don't want to radically change things. You do want to eat more. In some cases, eat more, but not necessarily a whole lot more.
It depends. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it depends on your trimester, how and your weight going into it. You
don't want to restrict.
Yes,
calories going in, and that's it.
And that can be kind of where it can get a little difficult,
especially athletes or people maybe in the fitness industry. They don't want to gain weight, so they kind of self-restrict. So it's really important to get the calorie surplus going into pregnancy, I think, and then to do it in a moderate.
Something that's related, people ask a lot about too, is breastfeeding. And I think that's something that, again, we don't have a lot of research on. There is interestingly, breastfeeding seems to be one of those kind of interesting rare situations where there have been reports of an individual, a non-diabetic individual, eating a low carbohydrate ketogenic type diet and having a bout of ketoacidosis. And so they think it might be because your nutrient requirements go up. You are probably utilizing and you're making and expressing higher amounts of carbohydrates and fats and all nutrients in your breast milk. And also you can become dehydrated really easily when you're breastfeeding if you're not actively trying to stay on top of that. And that's something that, a lot of women think about, I really need to lose weight when I'm, postnatal, having during that breastfeeding period. And it's something to really, be careful about and definitely work with your physician, your OBGYN, ideally someone who knows about this kind of stuff, specifically diet, ketogenic diet, if that's what you're interested in, because it's one of those situations where the body does have very specific nutritional requirements that are not really present in other times. So that would be kind of my opinions. I know personally I was not really able to do very low carbohydrate when I was breastfeeding because my milk supply would just go down very rapidly. So it was almost like I could titrate it depending how much carbohydrate I ate. So it's interesting.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's a really fascinating topic and something that it's exciting to really see how there's so much more talk, I feel like, about even that period years before getting pregnant, like having a conversation around that, really taking that serious. A lot of women are really starting to understand how much of an impact that can make going into a pregnancy and is what you eat every day, right? And so I think that is going to be a really interesting talk. Dr. Jamie Seaman, who's going to be coming out, as I mentioned before, who's an OBGYN, to kind of discuss this topic from her experience. And she's right there in the trenches, delivering babies and really on that journey with women. I think she can really speak to that. And we're actually going to be going live with her next week. So you'll have to tune in for that, because we might cover some of this as much as we can, because there's a lot more research that needs to be done in this area specifically. And it's so important. Being a woman, I can vouch that it's so important that we actually take a look at this. But another question that we got has to do with autism, keto and autism specifically, which is actually a topic that Dr. John Rowe discussed at Metabolic Health Summit 2019. He's going to be coming out to our 2020 event and speaking there as well. It's certainly an interesting field, but they had asked if a modified ketogenic diet would have just as much of an impact. And I think it's quite a difficult topic, just because there's so much, again, more to learn, but also an exciting and emerging one. If you guys want to talk about maybe some of the latest on that specific topic.
Well, autism is very complex, and I think managing the symptoms of autism, we need to view it from the lens of like managing the symptoms of autism and thinking.
You're back.
Oh, yay.
Okay, Dom, continue with what you were saying about autism.
Yeah, I think for autism, managing symptoms of autism seems to be possible to some extent, depending upon the degree of autism, with a low glycemic index diet or a modified ketogenic diet. So there's been positive reports. One report, I think, with a dairy-free ketogenic diet that even silenced or caused remission in a child with autism. And that was one of the early reports that came out, and it led to a case report. And I think there are clinical trials right now with the ketogenic diet in autism. So I think managing the symptoms may be part of a more comprehensive, multifaceted therapy, including behavioral therapy, that could really benefit.
Yeah, it's an interesting question scientifically. So I think so autism is a common comorbidity with epilepsy or seizure disorders. And so since we know there's a very long, rich history of ketogenic diet being efficacious, proven standard of care for epilepsy. And so it makes sense that people have begun to explore this in autism. And as Dom said, there are ongoing clinical trials, which is really exciting. And there have been published small human reports and cases as well.
There we go.
Are we
back? Coming back now.
Oh.
Yeah, it's going in waves. The Wi-Fi is going in waves.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, but, well, it's interesting that it seems that some different research has shown in these different models that may be mitigating some of the underlying aspects of these diseases, like neuroinflammation, for example. There was a mouse model where the mother is the immune system is activated by a specific chemical that is known to then cause autistic type behavior in the pups after they're born, and the ketogenic diet was able to lessen those symptoms. And then also another study in a different autism mouse model showing that gut microbiome changes actually probably played a really important role in that the effect that was seen in that model. So it's a really, really interesting question scientifically, and people are moving forward on all fronts, both basic science type research in the animal models and then also the human trials, which is really exciting. So I think we'll learn a lot more about that soon.
And there may be
Absolutely.
an immune system link. So the ketogenic diet may be correcting or preventing immune dysregulation associated with, an immune response linked to autism. And that has been a current, like a theme that researchers are looking at, that, nutritional ketosis augmenting the immune system in a way that prevents it from triggering an immune reaction that we think may be linked to autism.
Right.
So it's just one
Yeah, it's
theory.
really yeah, it's a really interesting sort of area of research, and looking forward to Dr. Rowe's presentation just to see sort of what's the latest in that area, as epilepsy too. I think that's something that, keto is such a buzzword these days, which is exciting to see. But what's really exciting, at least for me, and I know you guys share this as well, is seeing all of the applications and just simply getting the word out there about the diet. It sort of then trickles out to all of these other potential conditions and, potential impact that this diet might have on, say, everything from cancer to epilepsy to Alzheimer's. It's just a really exciting time. And I think overall, just hearing about the ketogenic diet for people. I mean, I even know of a friend of mine who started the ketogenic diet, who also suffers from epilepsy, but started because of weight loss. Had heard like their colleague had started the diet, lost 5-10 pounds. So they hopped on the diet, and then sort of as an amazing side effect, started to experience less in terms of seizures, which can be really life-changing for people. So we're going to be covering all of these topics. What area would you say you guys have a big emphasis in your lab on cancer and environmental extremes, and metabolic therapies place sort of there. But what's exciting to you, for you both, to see where this research is extending to? Because I know when you talk about it to somebody who doesn't know anything about the diet, it just almost seems too good to be true. But really, it's got a variety of applications. What are you guys most excited about, maybe moving forward, and that's upcoming at the conference?
I would say
All
immune
of it.
system and yeah, inflammation and glucose regulation probably. And the understanding that what may not be completely intuitive is that the ketogenic diet, it may be intuitive that, the ketogenic diet can reduce glucose fluctuations and help to manage type 2 diabetes. But what may not be completely intuitive is that ketogenic fats like MCTs and ketone supplements in the form of ketone salts and ketone esters have a pretty profound effect at lowering blood glucose. So we're working on a paper now. Hopefully it will be approved by the time the meeting comes. So we have some really interesting data to share on that. Blood glucose levels. I believe that blood glucose and glucose fluctuations are the primary as metabolic health biomarkers. And for many people, if we can improve that and regulate fluctuations to prevent postprandial excursions in glucose, that will pay big dividends, for not only type 2 diabetes, maybe type 1 diabetes, and just general, as we age, we don't process and handle carbohydrates well. And even if we don't do a ketogenic diet, if we can incorporate supplementation, that may be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I'm always really excited to read anything that's talking about potential application for brain health as we age. So preserving brain function and resiliency as we age. So the population's getting older, and just, of course, selfishly thinking about what our future is going to look like, and my son's future, and just thinking about ways to basically make those lifestyle changes now that are going to have impacts on us decades from now. So like stuff that like Dr. Stephen QnA has talked about at MHS before. We have Dr. Mary Newport coming to speak this year, and I'm sure she'll share some of her story with her husband, who had early onset Alzheimer's disease. So it's a big topic. It's a big topic that affects a lot of people, and I'm always very encouraged to hear the advances in the science in that field.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got some really great speakers when it comes to brain health, and that's probably one of my biggest areas of research that I'm most interested in is brain cancer specifically, just because I feel like some of the most promising research coming out right now, or, you know, even like in my work with implementing the diet in that kind of a setting is in brain cancer specifically. So, you know, we've got Dr. Chris Smith, who's going to be coming out, who's a neurosurgeon, who's going to be speaking. He actually has worked with patients with a ketogenic diet who also suffered from things like glioblastoma. We've even got Dr. Chris Palmer, who is going to cover the very important topic of mental health. He's actually got some really interesting information around schizophrenia and the ketogenic diet, which, as well as opioid addiction. So we really are going to be covering a vast array of topics, and just so excited to kick this off with you guys. And it's hard to believe that it's literally 5-6 months away. So it sounds like a long time from now, but this conference will sell out very quickly. So if you don't have your early bird tickets, go on over to metabolichealthsummit.com and get them, because they will go soon. Looks like you guys are a little frozen, thankfully both smiling. I don't know if everybody can see or hear you guys. There you go. I think you're back. You're a little pixelated. But we've got some great comments here, people saying thank you for hosting the live, and I'm just really excited to keep the conversation going with you guys. We're going to be doing more lives throughout the year leading up to the conference, so make sure you guys are following Metabolic Health Summit on Facebook as well as Instagram. And if you subscribe to our email list, you get 10% off early bird tickets, so that saves you a ton of money. So thank you guys for taking time out from your day at the lab, and we'll be seeing you guys really soon. And I'll be going live next week with Dr. Seaman, so make sure you guys stay tuned. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.